Hello everybody. Today in this session we are going to discuss about the renal handling of sodium. As we all know, sodium ion is one of the important solute in the glomerular filter filtered load, and daily filtered load of sodium ion is equivalent to the 1 kg of NaCl. So daily filtered load of sodium ion in the glomerular filtration is equivalent to 1 kg of NaCl, 1 kg of NaCl and zero point 0.5 kg of sodium bicarbonate and 0.5 kg of sodium bicarbonate. Most of this sodium ion can be actively reabsorbed or passively reabsorbed when sufficient aldosterone is present. So reabsorption of sodium ion mainly or can be done completely when there will be sufficient amount of aldosterone is present. So aldosterone presence is very much important for the complete reabsorption of the sodium ion. Okay, that is the thing you need to know. Now, most of the sodium ion can be reabsorbed in all parts of the nephron except in the descending thin limb of the loop of Henle. That means no sodium ion will be reabsorbed in the descending part, descending thin limb of the Henle, loop of Henle. Okay, so if we try to understand which parts are actually responsible for this sodium ion reabsorption, to understand this thing, we have to draw a schematic diagram of nephron so that we can understand it more better. So this is the glomerular Bowman capsule, then the proximal part of the nephron, then it comes as descending thin limb of the loop of Henle, which is not take part in the reabsorption process of the sodium ion. Then loop of Henle, then ascending thin limb of the loop of Henle, then it will produce thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle, then early part of the distal convoluted tubule, late part of the distal convoluted tubule, and finally we have cortical collecting duct, outer medullary collecting duct, and inner medullary collecting duct. And of course we have what here, it is the afferent arteriole, then glomerular capillary network, then efferent arteriole, then efferent arteriole, and eventually it will produce peritubular capillary network. Okay, so if we try to level all these things, here it is the afferent arteriole through which the filtration or the filtered product will passing through, and from there it will filtrate through the Bowman capsule and come into the proximal part of the nephron, from where it will go to the proximal convoluted tubule. So here it is the PCT, proximal convoluted tubule. Then here it is the thin ascending limb of Henle loop, and here it is the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Here it is the early part of the DCT. Here it is the late part of the DCT, and late part of the DCT, and here it is the collecting duct. In the late part of the DCT and collecting duct, in this zone, the cell that is responsible for the sodium ion reabsorption is known as the principal cell. So it is, in short, you can say it is the P cell. So P cell is actually present not only in the late part of the DCT but also in the collecting duct. Okay, so what is the exact percentage for this sodium ion reabsorption in this location? in the PCT, always under the normal circumstances, sodium ion will be reabsorbed almost 67%. So 67% of sodium ion will be reabsorbed completely from the proximal convoluted tubule. There are several mechanisms we will discuss later. In the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, the sodium ion reabsorption process will be continued, and here almost 25% of sodium ion will be reabsorbed by this, mainly the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle and the thin ascending limb of the loop of Henle. In the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle, 50% of this 25% will be reabsorbed by the active process. So here the sodium ion reabsorption will be continued in active procedural way, and in the thin ascending limb of the loop of Henle will be responsible for rest of the 50% of this 25% reabsorbed sodium ion, and this will be conducted in passive way. So passive reabsorption process will be there for the thin ascending limb of the loop of Henle. So in the tall part or thick ascending limb, there will be active reabsorption, and here in the thin ascending limb of the loop of Henle, there will be passive reabsorption. Okay. Now in the early part of the DCT, almost 5% of the sodium ion will be reabsorbed, and together in the late part of the DCT as well as in the collecting duct, almost 3% of sodium ion will be reabsorbed. That means P cell will help to reabsorb sodium ion almost 3%. So how much sodium ion will remain, which will be excreted away? It will be almost very negligible, less than 1%. So net sodium ion excretion will be less than 1%. That means we can say here it is the net sodium ion excretion. So it will be less than 1%, very negligible amount. Now, next we shall discuss about the process by which sodium ion can be reabsorbed in all these areas. So again, in the last part, we have noticed that this descending thin limb of the loop of Henle will not take part in sodium ion reabsorption process. Rest of all parts of the as well as the loop of Henle also, we can say the bending side or the loop of Henle, in these two sides no sodium ion will be reabsorbed. Otherwise, throughout the nephron in every part there will be sodium ion reabsorption in different process. So what are the different processes for this sodium ion reabsorption? Let's discuss this thing. So first is the unidirectional sodium ion reabsorption. Unidirectional sodium ion reabsorption process. Number one. Number two, by the exchanger mechanism, that is the sodium hydrogen ion exchanger, by which sodium ion can be actively reabsorbed. And third one is the chloride driven sodium ion reabsorption. So chloride driven sodium ion reabsorption. Now here one thing you have to understand, that unidirectional means this process is actually known as the secondary active transport mechanism. Secondary active transport mechanism. It is also secondary active transport. But thing is that sodium ion will be reabsorbed in this process, but hydrogen ion will be excreted. So these two ion will move in different way or in opposite direction. That's why it is known as exchanger. In exchange of hydrogen ion, sodium ion will be reabsorbed. So it is also one of the example of the secondary active transport mechanism. So secondary active transportation, we can give example as sodium hydrogen ion exchanger. Now we shall discuss our lecture about the sodium ion reabsorption process in segment wise. That means how sodium ion will be reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule or in the proximal part of the nephron. Then we shall discuss sodium ion reabsorption process in the ascending limb of the loop of Henle site. Then we will discuss early part of the DCT, how it will help to reabsorb sodium ion, and finally by the principal cell in presence of aldosterone, how sodium ion will be reabsorbed on that site. So first we shall discuss about the sodium ion reabsorption process in the proximal convoluted tubule. So sodium ion reabsorption process in the PCT, proximal convoluted tubule. So we shall divide this proximal convoluted tubule into two halves. One is the proximal convoluted tubule early part, that is the part 1, and the distal part of the proximal convoluted tubule, this is the part 2. So to understand this thing, first we have to draw the proximal convoluted tubule early part and the late part, so that you can understand it more better. So here it is the early part, part 1, and here it is the part 2. What events is actually occur in the part 1? Here it is the epithelial cell, of course, and this is also one part of the epithelial cell, and it is the medullary interstitial zone. So here it is the tubular lumen, it is the epithelial cell, and it is the medullary interstitium. Okay, so first the filtrate load that will come in the proximal part of the nephron from the glomerular capillary network through the Bowman capsule and eventually come into the proximal convoluted tubule. So here not only hydrogen ion is there, but also bicarbonate ion is also there, and of course sodium ion is there, and as well as glucose is there. So first we shall discuss how sodium ion will be reabsorbed by the glucose. In the part 1 of the PCT, there is a secondary active transportation mechanism which is known as the sodium glucose co-transporter, SGLT, SGLT type 2 or SGLT2, by which both the sodium ion as well as the glucose will be reabsorbed in the epithelial cell, and sodium ion and glucose will come into the cell. So by the action of the SGLT2, this is the pump, and this process is the secondary active transport mechanism by which sodium ion can be reabsorbed. First. Second is that sodium ion can again be reabsorbed by the help of sodium bicarbonate co-transporter pump. It is known as the NBC, sodium bicarbonate co-transporter 1, where one ion of the sodium will be reabsorbed along with the 3 ion of the bicarbonate. So it is the 1:3 ratio by which sodium ion can be reabsorbed along with the bicarbonate. And we can say both this transportation mechanism is the one of the important example of the secondary active transport mechanism. And this is the unidirectional mechanism. That means when sodium ion will be reabsorbed at this situation, not both the bicarbonate as well as the glucose will also be reabsorbed in the same direction. So it is the unidirectional sodium ion reabsorption process. We can say it is the example of unidirectional sodium ion reabsorption process. Unidirectional sodium ion reabsorption process. Okay, now what happens, this hydrogen ion will present here, and in the previous lecture of the acid base balance or the renal tubular acidosis, we had seen that this hydrogen ion and bicarbonate, when they are present, by the action of the membrane bound carbonic anhydrase, they will produce H2CO3, and eventually it will break down into H2O and CO2. Not only that, but also within the cell, by the metabolic process, there will be production of the H2O and the CO2. That means when they will react with each other, they will first produce H2CO3, and again it will immediately break by the cytosolic carbonic anhydrase, and it will produce H2O and the CO2. And also by the metabolic process within the cell, this sodium, water and the carbon dioxide will also be produced, and they will react with each other by the carbonic anhydrase, cytosolic carbonic anhydrase, and again it will produce what? Bicarbonate ion as well as the hydrogen ion. Now, what happens? This hydrogen ion will be coming out from the cell, because if it is present within the cell, the acidotic situation will arise, and which is not so soothing for the cell. So it has to come out from the cell by the action of the exchanger mechanism. That means the sodium hydrogen ion exchanger. So here important pump which is required is known as the sodium hydrogen ion exchanger, by which this sodium ion can be entered into the epithelial cell from the tubular lumen, and hydrogen ion eventually come out from the epithelial cell into the tubular lumen, so that acidotic situation will not be arised within the cell. Now, what happens by all these three process, and here it is the sodium hydrogen ion exchanger process, which is the also an example of secondary active transportation. So sodium hydrogen ion exchanger will also present in the proximal part of the nephron, part 1, and by this process sodium ion will be entered into the epithelial cell. Now what happens, this sodium ion ultimately will come out from the epithelial cell by the important pump which is known as the sodium potassium ATPase. So at the basolateral site of the epithelial cell, sodium potassium ATPase pump is present. Sodium potassium ATPase pump is present, by which 3 sodium ion can come out into the medullary interstitium in exchange of 2 potassium ion. So here it is the ratio of 3 is to, here it is the ratio of 3 is to 2. 3 is to 2. So it is the ratio where the sodium ion can be come out from the cell into the medullary interstitium eventually, and potassium ion will be reabsorbed or enter into the cell from the medullary interstitium into the epithelial cell by the action of the sodium potassium ATPase pump, which is an example of primary active transport mechanism. So here the ultimate sodium ion reabsorption process from the basolateral site is via the primary active transport mechanism. So primary active transport is the process by which sodium ion will be reabsorbed from the basolateral site. Sodium ion reabsorption from the basolateral site. From basolateral. Okay, so this is the thing you have to understand. So again, to summarize, sodium ion in the part 1 of the proximal convoluted tubule will be reabsorbed by the unidirectional process as well as by the exchanger process. And the unidirectional process are of two types. One by the sodium bicarbonate co-transporter mechanism, where one sodium ion along with three bicarbonate will be reabsorbed from the tubular lumen, and also by the help of the sodium glucose transporter 2, by which not only sodium but also glucose can be reabsorbed from the tubular lumen into the epithelial cell. And second thing is that exchanger process, by which sodium ion will be reabsorbed from the tubular lumen in exchange of hydrogen ion which is present in the cell, and to maintain the pH in neutral position, hydrogen ion will have to be excreted from the cell by the help of the sodium hydrogen ion exchanger. And finally, this sodium ion will eventually be reabsorbed in the medullary interstitium by the help of the primary active transport mechanism, that is the sodium potassium ATPase pump. So here it is the pump known as the sodium potassium ATPase, where three sodium ion will be reabsorbed in exchange of two potassium ion. It is the example of primary active transport mechanism, where ATP is mainly required for getting reabsorbed of sodium ion. That means if there is no ATP or less ATP is present inside the cell, it can hamper the sodium ion reabsorption process. Second thing is that in the second part of the PCT, what will happen? In the second part of the PCT, both this sodium bicarbonate co-transporter mechanism as well as the sodium hydrogen ion exchanger mechanism will operate. So here the sodium bicarbonate co-transporter as well as the sodium hydrogen ion exchanger is present. So NBC1, and second is that anion exchanger 1. We can say this pump is also known as the anion exchanger 1. Anion exchanger 1. So anion exchanger 1 will also be present in the second part of the PCT, and in the same process sodium ion will be reabsorbed from the tubular lumen into the epithelial cell, and eventually it will come out from the epithelial cell into the medullary interstitium by the sodium potassium ATPase pump. No fun in telling this. And second thing is that this SGLT, which is SGLT, sodium glucose transporter 1, is present in the part 2 of the PCT. Now, what is the difference between SGLT2 and SGLT1? SGLT2 has the high affinity but less capacity. That means SGLT2 will have high capacity to reabsorb sodium ion. So high capacity but less affinity for the sodium ion. Less affinity for the sodium ion. Decrease affinity for the sodium ion. Here the SGLT1 will have high affinity but less capacity. So increase affinity for the sodium ion reabsorption, but it has less capacity for sodium ion reabsorption process. That's why the amount of sodium ion that will be reabsorbed by the help of SGLT pump, it is the 97% of sodium ion will be reabsorbed by this SGLT2, and only 3% of the sodium ion will be reabsorbed by the SGLT1, which has less capacity but it has high affinity, because majority of the sodium ion actually reabsorbed in the part 1 of the PCT. Very few amount of sodium ion will remain inside the part 2 of the PCT. That's why it will has less capacity but it has more affinity, so that the remaining part of the sodium ion can also be reabsorbed by the SGLT type 1. Now, another thing is that we need to understand that in the filtered load, not only sodium bicarbonate, hydrogen ion and glucose amino acids are present, but also chloride ion is also there, but this chloride ion will not be reabsorbed in the part 1 of the PCT. And what will happen? All the chloride ion eventually come into the part 2 of the PCT, and the concentration of the chloride ion will be high up, which is almost how much? It is around 140 milliequivalent per liter. And we know that in the medullary interstitium, the concentration of the chloride ion will be how much? It is 110 only milliequivalent per liter. So due to this concentration gradient, this chloride ion actually getting reabsorbed in the paracellular route. So chloride ion ultimately come from the part 2 of the PCT into the medullary interstitium by this paracellular route. So chloride ion ultimately come in the medullary interstitium. Now what will happen? The second part of the PCT, which is where it is present adjacent to that side medullary interstitium, the negativity will be increased. So to maintain the electron neutrality, again sodium ion can be reabsorbed. Sodium ion can be reabsorbed. The remaining part of the sodium ion which is present in the part 2 of the PCT, to maintain the electron neutrality in the medullary interstitium, because as chloride ion will be reabsorbed in the via the paracellular route, and when the high concentration of chloride ion is present in the medullary interstitium by the by this process, this electronegativity should be normalized or neutralized. So to maintain the electron neutrality, sodium ion will be reabsorbed, which is known as the chloride driven sodium ion transporter. So this sodium ion reabsorption process will occur via the paracellular route. In between the two cell, the site is known as the paracellular site. So by this paracellular route, this sodium ion will be reabsorbed. Now, one thing I have to mention here, that this chloride ion is actually reabsorbed via the paracellular route by the special pump or channel, which is known as the leaky tight junction, which is made by the occludin 16, claudin 16. These are the claudin 16, occludin 16. These are the leaky tight channel by which chloride can be reabsorbed via the paracellular route due to concentration gradient between the tubular lumen and the medullary interstitium. And to maintain the electron neutrality, sodium ion will be reabsorbed. So this is known as the chloride driven sodium ion reabsorption process. So chloride driven sodium ion reabsorption process. So this is the overall picture of the sodium ion reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubule. Now, after that, what will happen? The filtered load will eventually pass through the descending thin limb of the loop of Henle as well as the bending side of the loop of Henle, where no sodium ion will be reabsorbed. Then eventually the filtered load will come in the ascending thin limb of the loop of Henle as well as thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. And here is the site where sodium ion can be reabsorbed easily, and the amount of sodium ion will be reabsorbed in the thin ascending limb of the loop of Henle as well as the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle together will contribute 25%. Out of this 25%, 50% will be passive reabsorption. That means 50% of sodium ion will reabsorb passively by the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle, and remaining 50% will be reabsorbed by the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle, and this is the active reabsorption process. So it is the active reabsorption process, and here it is the passive reabsorption process. Okay, so now we shall discuss only about the active reabsorption process by which sodium ion actually reabsorbed in the toll. So here it is the tubular lumen of the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Here it is the epithelial cell of the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Now what happens? Not only sodium ion will present in the thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle, but also potassium ion as well as the chloride ion will be there. And there is a special pump or channel at the apical site of the tubular lumen, which is known as the sodium potassium 2 chloride ion symporter. So we can write it as NKCC2, where not only sodium ion but also potassium ion as well as the chloride ion will be reabsorbed by this pump or channel from the tubular lumen via the epithelial cell membrane into the epithelial cell, and it is the apical site. So at the apical site, sodium ion will be reabsorbed from the tubular lumen via the sodium potassium 2 chloride ion symporter, and this is how much? 50% of the total 25%. So this is the active process, or we can say it is the example of secondary active transport mechanism. Now sodium ion eventually present inside the epithelial cell, and again no fun in telling that how much that how sodium ion will be ultimately reabsorbed from the epithelial cell into the medullary interstitium. It is the sodium potassium ATPase pump. Sodium potassium ATPase pump, because every cell will have sodium potassium ATPase pump, and this sodium ion will be reabsorbed from the epithelial cell into the medullary interstitium. So this is the process by which sodium ion will be reabsorbed in the ascending part of the nephron. Next, we shall discuss about the early part of the DCT as well as the late part of the DCT event and collecting duct. So again, we have to draw this thing. This is the early part of the DCT. So here the pump or channel which is present is known as the sodium chloride symporter. So this is the epithelial cell again, and this is known as the sodium chloride symporter. How much sodium ion will be reabsorbed by this channel? It is also example of the secondary active transport mechanism. It is the 5%. So 5% of sodium ion will be reabsorbed via this channel or pump, and finally sodium ion again will be reabsorbed from the cell to the medullary interstitium at the basolateral site by the sodium potassium ATPase pump. So sodium potassium ATPase pump will be responsible for reabsorption of the sodium ion 5%. So it is the process in the, or it is the event which occur in the early part of the DCT. So early part of the DCT will act in this way. Now the late part of the DCT and as well as the collecting duct, throughout all this site which cell is present, it is the P cell, or we can say it is the principal cell. So it is the P cell. So it is the P cell which is present or in the late part of the DCT as well as the collecting duct, and the sodium ion will be reabsorbed in the P cell by the action of the aldosterone. How? Because at the apical site of the tubular lumen there is specialized channel or pump is present which is known as the epithelial sodium ion channel, ENaC, epithelial sodium ion channel. It is responsible for only 3% of the sodium ion reabsorption. So via this channel, sodium ion will be reabsorbed and ultimately it will come into the medullary interstitium by the sodium potassium ATPase pump. So thing is same, but how this ENaC will be activated that we have to discuss in our next slide. Suppose it is the tubular lumen. Here it is the P cell. Here it is the P cell. So it is our tubular lumen. It is the P cell, and here it is the medullary interstitium. Now, what happens when there will be reduced blood pressure? Our renin-angiotensin-aldosterone mechanism will be activated. So if there will be decreased blood pressure under the physiological circumstances, our renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system will be activated, and eventually what will happen, there will be increased concentration of angiotensin 2, and finally this angiotensin 2 will help to synthesize the aldosterone from the adrenal gland. So aldosterone eventually come into the circulation. Now how this aldosterone will act? This aldosterone is actually lipid soluble, so it can easily pass through the basolateral side of the P cell and enter into the cytosol of the P cell, and it will immediately produce hormone receptor complex. There is intracellular or cytoplasmic receptor for this aldosterone. So it is the hormone receptor complex which will form, hormone receptor complex which will form after binding of the aldosterone with the receptor, which is known as the aldosterone receptor. It is an example of cytoplasmic receptor. So by this way, this aldosterone is actually bind with the receptor present in the cytosol known as the hormone receptor complex, and this hormone receptor complex enter into our nucleus of the P cell, and where the hormone responsive element is present, and together all these things will interact with each other, and finally via the transcription translation process there will be production of a specialized protein which is known as the aldosterone induced protein, also known as the aldosterone induced protein, aldosterone induced protein, which is known as the AIP. Another name of this aldosterone induced protein, we can simply say this AIP, aldosterone induced protein. Now this aldosterone induced protein will do what? It will first activate epithelial sodium ion channel, ENaC. It will first increase the expression of the ENaC at the apical site. Then it will do what? It will again increase expression of the sodium potassium ATPase pump. It will again increase expression of the sodium potassium ATPase pump at the basolateral site. Third thing is that this AIP will activate what? Serum glucocorticoid kinase 1, SGK1, which in turn increase expression of the epithelial sodium ion channel at the apical site, and also the ROMK channel, which is responsible for the potassium ion secretion at the tubular lumen in the distal part of the nephron. So ROMK channel will be increased in number by this SGK1, and also aldosterone induced protein will increase expression of the channel activated proteases 1, which in turn help to increase expression of this ENaC channel. That means as a result, by the action of the aldosterone, what will happen? There will be increased number of the epithelial sodium ion channel, and also increase at the apical site, and at the basolateral side it is the basolateral site, and here it is the apical site. So at the apical site there will be increased expression of the ENaC, and at the basolateral site there will be increased expression of the sodium potassium ATPase pump, and also it will help to increase expression of the Romke channel at the apical site, by which potassium ion actually secreted or excreted from the medullary interstitium into the tubular lumen, so that there will be no hyperkalemic situation in the inside the cell, which will be harmful for the cell. Now, as the filtered load will come into the distal part of the nephron from the early part of the DCT, there will be sodium in that load, and eventually this sodium ion will be reabsorbed first via the epithelial sodium ion channel, and then this sodium ion finally will be reabsorbed from the cell of the principal cell by this sodium potassium ATPase pump. Everywhere what will happen in this fashion. So sodium ion ultimately come into the medullary interstitium, and the potassium ion that is enter into the cell by this sodium potassium ATPase pump will eventually come out from the cell into the tubular lumen by this Romke channel. So one thing you must understand, that if there will be deficiency in the aldosterone concentration, this 3% of the sodium ion will not be reabsorbed properly in the distal part of the nephron, and eventually it will be excreted. And if there will be increased excretion from less than 1% to 3%, massive fluid loss will occur. There will be increased excretion of extracellular fluid. As a result of this, there will be decrease in the blood volume, and severe hypotensive situation will occur. So this is the importance of the aldosterone. That means if there is deficiency of the aldosterone, not only sodium ion will be reabsorbed, but also there will be decreased excretion of the potassium ion also. So hyponatremia as well as hyperkalemia and the hypotensive situation will arise if there will be aldosterone deficiency. But still, if there will be normal concentration of the aldosterone is present in the media, but still sodium ion can be excreted more, which is known as the phenomena is known as the aldosterone escape. So in our next slide we shall discuss this thing, that is the aldosterone escape, which is very much important clinical aspect also. So aldosterone escape, aldosterone escape, what is that? Now, suppose if there will be increased sodium ion concentration in our body, hypernatremic situation will occur. That means heavy load of the sodium ion present in the filtrate load in the filtered solution, there will be increased sodium ion concentration. As a result of this, ultimately what happens, much amount of sodium ion ultimately come in the DCT or the distal part of the nephron in the P cell, and which has only 3% capacity for reabsorption of the sodium ion in the last part of the nephron. So eventually, though there will be normal concentration of the aldosterone is present, and normal mechanism is actually going on by this epithelial sodium ion channel as well as the sodium potassium ATPase pump, but still more amount of sodium ion will be excreted. So more amount of sodium ion will be excreted, though there will be normal concentration of the aldosterone is present. So this is the one thing by which aldosterone natriuresis will occur. So this is the one factor for the aldosterone escape. Second is that if there will be increase in the renal blood flow, as well as there will be increase in the glomerular filtration rate. Why? If there is increase in the renal blood flow, there will be increase in the hydrostatic pressure of the glomerular capillary network. And if there will be hydrostatic pressure of the glomerular capillary network, that will in turn help to increase in the GFR. So increased GFR will lead to increased concentration of the filtered load present in the tubular lumen. Ultimately, what happens? Much amount of sodium ion eventually come into the distal part of the nephron, and as a result of this, there will be failure mechanism of the epithelial sodium ion channel or the principal cell, and eventually much amount of sodium ion will be excreted. So this is the second reason for the aldosterone escape. Third one is that if there is high concentration of the ANP and BNP, that means atrial natriuretic peptide and brain natriuretic peptide, which are the natriuretic factors. As a result of this, there will be increased natriuresis. So increased sodium ion excretion will occur, though there will be a normal concentration of the aldosterone is present. So these are the three factors by which high concentration of the sodium ion will be or can be excreted, though there will be normal concentration of the aldosterone present in the media, which the phenomena is known as the aldosterone escape. So this is overall the renal handling of the sodium ion. Hope you will enjoy this tutorial session of this renal handling of the sodium ion and the aldosterone escape phenomena. Thank you.